this video, I'll be looking at what options are available for closer range targets. Perhaps you have a fixed choke gun, so you can't change choke, so your only options really are to go to a smaller shot size, perhaps say a 9. In this video I'll be using Lyle Vale's English Sporter. That's a standard type cartridge with a size 9 shot, and then I'll be comparing it to see if there's any difference to that of probably the most popular choice on the market for a piston type cartridge, and that's Hull Pro Piston. I will also then be comparing those to the Fiocchi F3 piston and the B&P Sporting and Compact close or short range option. I will also be looking at different chokes. So the one choke that I'll be using is a quarter or improved cylinder, and then the other one that I will be using is a super cylinder, which does seem to be getting a bit of hype recently, so I'll be seeing if that works in my particular gun. Now, as usual, this is a totally unbiased test. I've bought all of the cartridges myself out of my own money. There is no sponsorship, and I'm doing this test to satisfy my own curiosity and just sharing the results with you. As a competitive shooter, I'm looking for the next 1 or 2 points on my scorecard, and I'm seeing if I can be convinced to use a smaller shot size, whereas generally my smallest shot size is an 8.5 Italian, so a size 8 UK. So my test will be 100% genuine, and like I've just said, I will be sharing the results with you to see if they save you any time and money testing yourself. However, I would be keen to see if anybody has done a similar test and the results that you've found for yourselves. When I test a cartridge, I firmly believe in just testing them in real world conditions. So for this test, I have gone to 2 competition grounds, that of Kibworth and Garlands, to put them under registered competition targets. And then I also went to Millride, which is more of a fun stroke club shoot with shorter targets. Literally every single target there is the type of thing that I would expect to see somebody shooting a piston cartridge at, because there's nothing really that you would consider even a medium range. It really is quite a small ground, so ideal for testing these cartridges on all of the targets there. As part of the tests that I've done for these cartridges, one of those was the water test, similar to that I did on the gun speed video that you might have seen, so shooting them into water to see if there was any variety in the spread. Unfortunately, the results were inconclusive, so against my better judgment, as I'm not a fan of pattern boards, for which I will go into detail on another video soon, I invested in some at more cost to make the video, but hopefully we can see when they might be effective, comparing the spread to the pattern density at certain distances. So the first one I did is to test a different choke. So this is super cylinder. Actually, forget this. I feel like the test card girl. Let's turn it round. So I've got 6 patterns to show you. 2 with each cartridge, or 2 with the standard, 2 with the piston, and then 2 showing what the super cylinder choke change did, and these were taken at 10 yards and 20 yards. So I'm looking at purely pattern density and the spread over the pattern board, so just to see when the cartridge may start to be effective and when may end being effective. So this is the standard, the Lyle Vale Sporter. size 9 with a quarter choke at 10 yards. So you can see there's not really much spread, but a good pattern density. This is then the same cartridge, the Laval English Sporter, at 20 yards. So we're getting a far greater spread as we would expect. This is with quarter choke, so probably what a lot of people will have if they have a fixed choke gun. As far as a sporter, quarter choke in one barrel is a popular choice. So this will give you some idea of the spread that you can expect with the size 9 cartridge. So still a good density, not many gaps there at all, so a good chance of a break. This is now the Hole Pro piston, so the same shot size as 9 with quarter choke at 10 yards. And I don't know about you, but I have to say I can't see any difference whatsoever between this and the standard cartridge. This is now the Hole Pro piston with a quarter choke at 20 yards. And we are actually starting to see a few gaps. Now let's assume we had a crosser, a fast crosser perhaps. If I put that there and I was just a few inches out of where I expected to be, there's a chance that I might miss that because there aren't enough pellets to hit it. And similarly, just there. So this is where the questions start to be asked about how effective these cartridges could be. There's actually even 2 bits even closer where only 2 or 3 pellets might even hit it there and there. And these are size 9s, so we need a few pellets to hit it to break it, especially being edge on. So that is actually slightly concerning. This time I'm going to assume that we have a multi-choke gun. So we do have an option of going to a more open choke. So this is super cylinder. And this is with the standard cartridge, so the Laval English Sporter again. So we've got a good pattern density at 10 yards. Incidentally, just in case anybody's wondering what the hole is, that's obviously from the wad going through the board. But I'd say that's slightly more open than using a piston cartridge. But now if we look at the super cylinder choke with a standard shell, now this is at 20 yards. Similar to the piston cartridge, we can see gaps opening up, which potentially could result in a miss. Just there's a few. And over there, let's just say we're a couple of inches out with the lead on a fast crosser. That's only 2 clays away from centre. That could result in a miss. So that's showing here, even. And there. If it's edge on, again, need a few pellets to actually break the clay. This doubt starting. So this is starting to say to me that at 20 yards a super cylinder choke is becoming a bit of a risk and not quite the choice that some people might think it is. So as I understand it, hopefully you can see on this video, with a piston cartridge they have so much within the wad, where the wad is a lot shorter than a standard one, and then a certain percentage of the shot is loose in the top, therefore allowing that to be a little bit looser and give a slightly wider pattern. So let's open them up and have a look. Unfortunately, in my excitement, I forgot to save an English Sporter cartridge to show you the wad. So I'm just going to use a different standard type cartridge. So I've got a game ball Velocity here, just to show you the difference between the wads. Okay, so that is a normal type plastic wad. They do vary, but that's generally the type of shape and size that they are. So that's the game ball Velocity. Now, when I was preparing to make this video, I was trying to get hold of some Lyovale Power Gold pistons, because they do make a piston cartridge themselves, but I just couldn't find any locally at all, and the only option that I had was to buy a slab of 250. Now unfortunately I do have to buy my own cartridges, and I wasn't prepared to take that risk to buy 250 if I didn't like them. So unfortunately they didn't make the test, but it is a shame, because from what I can see, the wad looks very similar, if not identical, to the Hulk Pro piston. So it would have been nice to compare them back to back. Perhaps if I can get hold of some in the future, I might just do a test on those Power Gold pistons on their own, but we shall see. But unfortunately couldn't get hold of them for this test. So that is Hull's Pro Piston wad. Like I say, from what I can see, the Lyovale Power Gold looks very similar indeed. Whether it's the same or not, I'm not sure, but very similar design. Moving on now to the Fiocchi. That is theirs. And finally the B&P. Now, one thing I've noticed with B&P cartridges is that they do take some cutting. The casing is a lot tougher than any other cartridge that I've found, so it's quite difficult to cut through, but we've got there eventually. So that is the B&P one. I just lie them down, you'll see that they all have different cup sizes. In fact, the B&P is probably the smallest, yet it felt probably the most accurate, which is strange, but still. So there we go. That's a standard one, then the Hull Pro one, the Fiocchi one, and B&P. So, after all this testing, what have I come to as a conclusion? And have I been convinced that there may be one of these that could be worth putting in my range bag for a competition? Well, the first conclusion, and it may be a little bit controversial and unpopular, but these Hull Pro Piston haven't performed as I would expect them to, given the hype. I was very disappointed. Had the least success with these compared to all of the other cartridges, and they were the most expensive ones that I tested. Now if I compare them to the Lyle Vale English Sporter, these are 25% less. I had greater success with them, and they inspired a lot more confidence with the brakes as well. They looked like they were braking the clays better overall. So out of the two, I can't see any reason why anybody would choose Pro Piston. Now this is just my conclusion after my testing. You may be a better shooter than me, but personally this is the last box of these I will ever buy, because to me they just aren't worth it. Like I said, these perform as well, if not better, at 25% of the price. I can't see any difference. I can't see how the piston wad makes any difference in this compared to a standard wad in these. There was just no visible difference. And once again, 25% cheaper. You're saving yourself a lot of money by putting one of these in your range bag instead. Now, would I put them in my cartridge bag for a competition? I'm not entirely sure. Excuse me. Personally, these two we're in a different league. Now, I wouldn't use them with my mind saying they're a piston cartridge, they'll give me a wider spread, etc. But I would put them in my range bag just thinking these might be better on a close range target, as they are throwing out a few more pellets. With the F3 piston, unfortunately it's not an option for me because I shoot a Miracle MK38 and I have had the unfortunate occasion where I have had a Fiocchi misfire, and I just can't have that in the back of my mind. But I can highly recommend them. They definitely gave the biggest and most impressive breaks. Okay, yes, they're a bigger shot size, which probably contributes to that, but as a cartridge just on a shorter range target, absolutely fantastic, highly recommend them. Now yes, I am a B&P fan, but these again inspired confidence. I wouldn't just say, oh yes, I know they give me a better spread. I'm not convinced of that either, but on a closer target, being that smaller pellet slightly, it's throwing more pellets at the clay, so there's a greater chance of breaking it if it is at a close range target, so I would consider these.